Hang of the thing.
Ding. Hey everyone, I'm here with Scott Barlow of Happen to Your Career, who recently had his first JV launch with his course, Figure Out What Fits. And there's some other guy as well. So Scott, God dang it!
I see how this is going to go, like right off the
We've got 30 seconds
it's gonna roll.
Oh, I tried so hard to keep a straight face. Yeah, there is some other guy.
We're not sure who he is. He got the link somehow.
I don't know how he showed up here. Anyway, the other guy, well, we'll let him introduce himself in just a moment, but maybe, or I can mute him. So Scott, start off just real quick. Tell us about the course, like who it's for, what it is, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
In your words.
Yeah, absolutely. We built a course for professionals that are really tired of doing what type of work that they've been in. Often for a number of years, they may have had 2 or 3 jobs, and they really want to make a change. But honestly, they don't want to do the same. They know they don't want to do the same thing that they've been doing, and then they don't know what it is that they want to be doing, whether it be making a change to another job or starting a business. So our course, Figure Out What Fits, helps guide them through that process and really look at what they're great at, what they want in their life, and then be able to attach that to how they're going to earn a living.
So you might call them confused cubicle dwellers?
Yes, they are confused cubicle dwellers.
I mean,
yes.
Is that what you're telling them? Are you like, is that your Facebook ad? Are you a confused cubicle dweller?
I am not telling them that.
It's going to be now, though.
I don't think that they like that. Really what it is,
Facebook
we
ad.
jokingly behind the scenes call it a lifestyle design course for people that have never heard of lifestyle design before.
Is that how you type, by the way, Mark? Like a caveman?
Totally. Yep.
Oh, okay. We're 2 minutes in. Mark, I think now would be a good opportunity for you to introduce yourself, since I really don't know what to say about you.
Well, it's kind of weird. Like, this is a weird introduction because
It
it's
is.
like I wear several hats because.
Well, you have to. But never mind.
Yeah, because there's no hair. I know. Thank you. But Scott and I have known each other for several years. We actually live fairly close to each other, which is interesting for people that work together in the online space.
Yeah.
We live like 30 minutes away from each other, and
you're not in San Diego.
and we're not
in
and we're
San
not
Diego.
in San Diego.
Yes.
That's
Or
right.
Nashville.
We
Or
are in
New York.
Central Washington.
Right.
believe it or not.
We're the only people here.
Which is
actually.
it's a real place. Yes.
There's not trees
Well,
or
we've all heard of Eastern Washington and Western Washington, but really there's a Central
There
Washington.
really is. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Scott and I have known each other for a while. I actually worked with Scott for probably a couple years, year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, a
Felt
little
like-
bit over a year. So Mark helped found
Develop
our
this.
company. He helped get it up and running, and then got us profitable, and then kindly left to go on doing other things after that point.
I always joke that it was the last piece that Scott needed to make a successful business and transition to being full time was to get rid of his co-founder, and he did,
Hire you back. Yeah.
and then hire me back. So yeah. So in the process of that, Matt, you and I were developing a relationship, and I that sounds weird. We were becoming friends, and I started doing launches with you, and then it came to the point where Scott needed some help. He was getting ready to do this first JV launch, and we'd gone to lunch a couple times, and I'd said, hey, here's some of the things that we typically do. Here's some suggestions, and he kind of had that. Scott or Matt, you've probably seen this in some of our other clients where it's like that deer in the headlight thing, where it's like, you want me to do all of what?
That sounds great, but
And so I can't remember what it was. Like, we talked about it and joked about it a little bit, and then finally I just sent him a text one day. I was like, dude, do you want me to help you with this launch? And Scott's like, yes, I thought you'd never ask.
and I frantically ran over to his house and begged on his doorstep. Is what happened.
So
Did you guys slow dance after that? Because I mean, really, this whole story sounded like the like the 7th grade dance where the girls are on one side and the boys are on the other, and
We did. Thank you very much.
we weren't going to mention that, but
I assume it was a Bryan
I
Adams
you
song.
asked.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So I helped. I'm now helping him run his JV stuff on the side,
Awesome.
and stealing everything Matt's told me and taking the stuff that works and using it for Scott.
That's good. That's good. And for those of you who don't know, Mark is also on my team, and so he is not only the man behind the scenes many times, but for those of you who have been involved with you may know Mark from summits such as the Authority Super Summit, and also from my email. Many of you
You might not even know that you know me from his email.
Did I just let the cat out of the bag there? What cat?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I wear several hats on Matt's team.
Yeah,
He's
I don't have any all around awesome guy. So let's get back to this launch. That's the comedy portion of the program. It's not over. It's just that was the comedy portion of the program. We'll still have comedy sparsely scattered throughout this. But, Scott, how'd the launch go? Like, I mean, you're free at this point. Like, just to be clear, you're free to share as much data or as little data as you want. So you can talk in vague terms, specific terms. There's not a wrong answer here. But how did it go just overall for you?
Overall, I mean, we had a couple of things that we were looking at as, hey, what's this going to be successful, or what does it look like if it's going to be successful? And overall, we hit a bunch of those, not all of those. So specifically, let's see. I was trying to, like, as we're talking, I'm trying to pull up the data because we figured it out at one point, like how many leads we brought in and everything else.
That sounds like something Scott Barlow would do. Okay, I got to clarify. Scott and Mark and I used to be in a mastermind together, and Scott was always the one that, like, everybody else is like, yeah, we did great. Here's what Scott's like. Let me pull up my spreadsheet.
I've hit 7.5 goals this week. I've hit 7.5 goals.
7.34 goals
since last Thursday at
3:20.
No, 3:23 in the afternoon.
Zapier and Evernote automatically sent those goals to me. And, yeah.
I just think them and they go to Evernote. It's crazy. It's great. Anyways,
let's see. Looks like we did about. So to keep in mind, this is not a massively priced course. This is not like a $2,000 course.
What is the price point on it?
So it was $147, and then we changed it to $197, and then we also had a buy-up option too that was a little bit more expensive. And let's see, I'm looking, and we did right around in this little mini JV launch. We did right around. Looks like $5,000 in sales total. Not all of that came from JV stuff.
Yeah. So first JV launch, $5,000.
We had again, 7 active affiliates, Scott.
Yeah, I think 6. 6.5. 6.325. My spreadsheet says so.
According to Zapier. But I want to point out that I just recorded a video, and for those of you who didn't watch it, it's at mattmcwilliams.com/slow and steady. Like slow and steady wins the race, and I talked through the process that you should go through before you try to do a big JV launch, and Scott for the most part is following that process without even really knowing it, which is like he could have come out of the gates and got every big career blogger and everybody signed up and offered a Tesla for first place, but I think Scott knew that this offer's not yet fully optimized. It's not 100% there. I mean, of course, it's never going to be 100% there, but you knew that this isn't perfect yet. You're still fine-tuning. You're still figuring out what works. Pardon the pun. Actually, don't pardon it because I meant it entirely, and it was awesome. No, but I mean, I think we hear this and like we just recently did a recap with Ryan Farrell from Josh Turner's launch. It was like how Josh Turner did a $2.85 million launch, and now it's like how Scott Barlow did a $5,000 launch with 6 partners. It could seem like that's totally different, but this is that stepping stone. This wasn't how Josh Turner with his first launch did $2.85 million. Like he's way down there, and you're still at the beginning, and that's awesome. And like I just want to commend you for not trying to necessarily come out of the gates swinging because that could have backfired. So many of the people viewing this right now are right where you probably were 3, 4, 5 months ago before this launch. So take us through, kind of that process of what you did to get ready for the launch, how you reached out to the partners, and how you did get this offer fine-tuned enough to have 6.7235 people promoting it.
Well, and to be clear too, to build on what you just talked about, Mark and I have had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks about, hey, look, we're going to do another launch coming up end of April, beginning portion of May, but really our goal is to be able to set ourselves up for what happens a year from now.
Yep.
And I think that really is the case. As we build some of the success with our affiliates, and as they continue to trust us, then we can have more and more affiliates, and have this proven track record where we're making our affiliates money at the same time. So to answer your question though, I really started with relationships that I already had. So this, for me, that was the easiest place to start. I know a number of people that are in the career space or professional development type space, and I knew that our offer could sell really, really well for that type of target market. And knowing that, I just reached out to them, had a conversation with them, and basically told them what our product is, how it could help their list, and got at least a trial commitment, and told them, hey, when we get closer here, we'll help you actually build out a plan and carry you through each step of the process. By the way, that's one thing that we've learned recently as we're recruiting for this next launch around. A lot of the people that are in the career development space are different than the space that you operate in, Matt, most of the time. They don't do back-to-back affiliate launches. They're not used to that as much as again and again. So one of the things Mark and I learned going around the first time is we've got to start from a different baseline and helping people understand, hey, here's how an affiliate launch actually functions. So that was part of my conversation too with I think three of the 6 people, the 7 people that we had. Is, hey, here's what it looks like. You're going to, we're going to send you this copy, not even copy. We're going to send you this stuff that we wrote, and you're going to be able to send that out to you. You'll be able to tweak it and modify it to fit your list if you want to, or you can just drop it right in there and then send that to your list. And then here's how it's going to track back. And so I don't know if that sounds silly or not, but that's some of the conversation that I had in order to help them understand how I could help them and help the people that are on their list at the same time.
Well, let me jump in too. I think one of the things, Matt, that Scott has done really well even before I came on is, he did really follow what you suggest in that post, because he took on, one person at a time and said, hey, I want to send him through this 8-day course. We have this free course, which is kind of the lead up to it. Yeah. And then I want to do a webinar just for your audience. And I think that's he's really set the tone with his affiliates, that it's that one-on-one individualized attention. And that allowed him, and I mean, Scott and I have talked about this for several months, that's allowed him, he's been doing these every 2 weeks basically for the last 6 months. So he's been able to do a lot of testing, a lot of tweaking, a lot of adjusting, a lot of creating swipe copy, all that stuff that allows him to really fine-tune what that offer is. And there's a lot more to do, but I think he's done a really good job of that. And like he said, it is a lot of, and even now we're doing a lot of where it's like, hey, what's your audience like? Like Scott has one where it's a guy that's got, I mean, how many subscribers does he get a day? It's like, what did you say, like hundreds of subscribers a day? And he's not tech savvy necessarily, which is what we're learning about this career space. Is they're not, you look at a lot of career websites and they look like they're from 1997. And so these are people that we've said, okay, you have an autoresponder series. We think this will fit in here. Here's 3 emails that you can put into that autoresponder. And I sit down and between Scott and I, and we write it in their voice so that they can put it in and learn the process and learn how on an ongoing basis they can make affiliate income, without having to do anything else. It's part of this six email autoresponder series they have. But I think, Scott set the precedence with his company that that's what we do with affiliates. We go above and beyond. We do the individualized thing. We say, what is your target market? How can we give you copy that's specifically fit for your audience? How can we make this webinar completely ideal for your audience? And when you do that, I think that not only does it make those affiliates successful, but I think it makes them more likely to support you from now until the end of time.
So I have 3 takeaways there. As I let my OCD kick in, is I can't stand. There's a little piece of paper on my desk. I'm like, ah!
Speaking of OCD.
Anyway,
timely.
So 3 takeaways are: 1, Scott, you started with who you know.
Yeah.
You didn't try to go out and get somebody who might be 10 times the size of somebody you know, but isn't somebody that you know. Mm-hmm. And you started with people that, let's just say that this launch didn't go like you expected, and from what I know, there's plenty of things you can improve, and we'll talk about those soon. And you could have made your partners more money. There are things that you could have done that would have made them more money, and somebody that you don't know really well will hold that against you.
Mhm.
Somebody that you know really well, they're doing it because it's you. They're like, whatever, and they're going to still support you again. And so you started with The second lesson is kind of the value of newbies. You're not going out and necessarily having to get the biggest people who've done 37 JV launches before. You went out and you got people who've maybe never done this before in many cases, and literally didn't even understand that when you said, here's your link, that was their link. Like
Right.
that little ref ID or whatever it is their link. And here's how it works. It's the magic of cookies. Like, what kind of cookies? Chocolate chip. And, you had to explain things to them. But here's the fun thing about them is when you train, I hate you right now.
Sugar cookie.
Man, you're killing me.
Squirrel.
You train them, and here's what happens is they're loyal to you. And the funny thing about people who, whether they have a list now of 1,000 or 100,000, the funny thing about newbies is eventually they become not newbies. And eventually people with 1,000 have 10,000, have 100,000, have whatever, and they will remember when you held their hand when they have nobody or they're clueless. And the third takeaway is nothing beats hustle. I got that for 6 months or so you were basically doing these webinars just over and over. You were doing these mini launches over and over. It is more fine-tuned now. And so I want to commend you for those three and just share those three takeaways. But also I think we kind of see a little bit of a theme developing here that I want to make sure we address and continue, and that's that one of the themes is like this is kind of the how to do a JV launch in an industry that doesn't do JV launches.
Yeah.
Like how to work with people who aren't doing this every day. So yeah, now let's talk about right now. We talked about a few things that went right, but I want to talk about anything else you want to share. Like, here's something we did that was just, it just went right. Like, we intended to do this, we executed it, and it just plain went right.
I think we had a ton of takeaways, but one thing that worked really, really well that we intended to do, we just didn't realize how well it was going to work, was as we put together the lead up to the webinar and the webinar itself, we realized afterwards, after we got the data back afterwards and saw where our sales came from, that almost everybody that had purchased of any kind had been on the webinar, watched the webinar replay, something else along those lines. So even though we had this great content up front, it wasn't necessarily just the content up front that sold it. We had this, and this is bordering on something that we didn't do as well too, but we had a audio course, like this step-by-step audio course that was in conjunction with podcasts that was available for people several weeks before the launch. And then we had an 8-day video series that led people right up to the very, very edge of the launch and kind of tipped them over into the edge. And then, the next thing that they could go do is be able to opt into the webinar. And we realized that especially the 8-day series worked hand in hand, leading people up to the webinar. And then once they got on the webinar, they really, really, really responded very, very well. But we saw that it was that stuff working in tandem that really caused that. Mark, what would you add on that?
I think along with that, and I would clarify, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but by almost everybody, I think Scott means like 95%. Like it was literally almost everybody.
Yeah, I think it's like all except for two sales or something.
I think to me...
Now, they didn't necessarily buy on the webinar, just to be clear.
Yes, that's correct. So they would trickle over the
basically, what you found was if you didn't view the webinar, you didn't either attend live or view the replay, there was almost no chance you were buying.
Yes, or at least there's probably a lot less chance. We don't necessarily know how many people would have bought if we hadn't shown the webinar, but...
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if you take the people who didn't view the webinars... Almost none of them bought.
Exactly.
What percentage of the launch list actually viewed the webinar either live or in replay? Do you know?
Hold on, Zapier's telling me right now. I think it was probably. This is a guess. I'm just kind of pulling this out of my head a little bit.
This is uncharted territory for Scott here.
This is math territory.
I think it was probably. Let's see. We had about. Just doing super quick math, which I worked in HR for a long time because I didn't know how to do math, but I would say we probably had, I think we had a 2/5 of the people that were opt-ins, roughly.
That's about 40%, by the way.
Yeah, about 40%.
Putting it out there.
Thanks there, Copernicus.
So let's call it like 39-40%.
Yeah. We'll just throw out a number, 39.72%. Give or take.
I think
so 40% of people watched it, but 95% of buyers, that
came from that. Yeah.
Nice.
And I think the point of that too, and one of the things to clarify is, Scott and I have talked about this a lot, and neither of us are saying that the magic bullet for a JV launch is a webinar. I think the thing that Scott and I learned is that with his focus on individualized attention, which carries over to his clients as well, it's not just the affiliates, that is the medium that he is best at. That's where he sells best. It's on a webinar. Even if it's an automated recorded webinar, he sells best when people are able to watch him and listen to him and follow. Because Scott has a background in coaching. He's coached, like he said, he's been in HR, but he's also done a lot of career coaching, and so that works really well for him. And so we've talked about the fact that we need to accentuate that, because that's what works really well. The other thing that I think was really cool that Scott did is when people signed up for the 8-day course, they immediately were given an option to sign up for the webinar. It wasn't okay, we got the 8-day course, and three or 4 days later, now it's like, hey, do you want to sign up for the webinar too? It was they signed up for the 8-day course, and now it's like, hey, we're also doing this live training. Do you want to sign up for it? And so they've already chosen that they want to get this information, and I would venture to guess that the sign-up rate was probably higher because they were already in that mindset of wanting to learn. They were already in the mindset of wanting to get some information, and they were given that opportunity right away.
So we had around 40% of the people that opted into the 8-day course would immediately sign up for the webinar, and then we'd have a whole big, large portion of them that would later sign up for the webinar if they didn't at that time too. Nice.
So I think the takeaway there is you do what you do best. And we talked about this in Ray Edwards' launch recap, and for him, the same thing is true. It's webinars. Yeah. Another good example of that is with Jeff Goins. With him, he's a writer, so an ebook is what's going to not only get the most opt-ins, but it's also going to convert better. It's going to get more people into what he's selling because he's admittedly a better writer than he is on screen. Yeah. And I think it's do what you do best, whatever that is. With Ray, I think another thing, Mark, you remember this probably is, we figured out like halfway through his book launch, we had these awesome landing pages that were basically just a video and a link. And Marshall Bone speaks up and says, this is so crazy in retrospect.
I know.
He goes, and he's just a very soft-spoken guy. Hey, Ray, this is a book about copywriting. Should we maybe have
some words?
Some words on the page?
Oh.
And immediately all three of us, the other three of us in the call, just went like, "Duh."
Yeah, where was that? Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, it's how ridiculous could we be? But the lesson there is, do what you do best. Now, of course, we add the copy to not only the original page, but the upsell page, and boom, surprisingly, the conversion rate doubled. Shocker, right? So, do what you do best. In your case, that's webinars. So I want to ask this. I want to kind of skip over to the partner aspect, and either one of you, feel free to share something that you observed. What's something that one of your top partners did that went really well? And obviously I want to skip past our top partner sent a lot of emails. That's awesome. Or they wrote really good copy. Clearly, they offered a bonus. Things that are kind of. Is there something that maybe somebody did that, it's rare, you've never seen before, and it surprised you that they did really well?
We had somebody who was brand new, never had done an affiliate offer before, and she didn't have a massive list or anything like that, and she's still relative newbie to the space, if you want to call it that, which whatever that means. And I think the initial thing, and we can get into exactly what she did, but she's like, okay, just tell me what to do. And so literally everything that we would send, or I got on a call with her at one point, and I think Mark, did you get on a call with her at one
I
point
got
too?
on a call with her during the launch,
Okay,
but
but you
back and
sent her a
forth.
whole bunch of ideas back and forth, and you guys were emailing back and forth for different things to try. She literally implemented everything that we said.
All right, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, well,
I'm now you've got me like, okay, there's somebody that's doing everything you tell them to do. Like, how do we find 100 of those?
I know.
Well, you found a few of those too, Matt. I mean,
Fair enough.
I think it comes back to, again, and Scott and I have talked about this. It's like in this industry, a lot of it is we're growing affiliates basically because this industry is it's not in the internet marketing realm, so it's a lot of new people. And so again, I think it just comes back to just having that we're going to be super helpful. Having that, hey, let us know what you need, and they say, hey, I could really use some swipe copy that fits in with blah blah blah, and you give it to them, because I think those are the things that really lead to affiliates that are going to trust you. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is having that communication open and having those, that sort of relationship with them to where they know that you're going to give them your best and you're going to give them what they need, and it's going to work well. And I think that was the big thing, and it really was, she did everything we suggested, and it went really well. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's the same thing. She's probably going to promote everything we do ever.
Love that.
Because of it.
I mean, here's the thing. Out of the 7 people or whatever, she finished third. She has a list of like 500 people. The top 2 and 3 have a lot more.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, tens of thousands more than that. So.
Yeah. So I think, one of the lessons there is, to experiment. And I'm writing that down because I don't want to forget that one. When I was, before I kind of got into actually doing this myself, like nowadays, I promote a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of like a crash test dummy for a lot of these ideas. Like, let me try out live chat and see how that does. Oh, well, it made me, $2,500. Which, perfect segue. You can read about that. I knew you two were going to laugh, by the way. mattmcwilliams.com/90 minutes. You can read about how I use live chat to increase conversions in a JV launch. But, I write about this stuff now, and I share with our JV partners, like, I'll try something, and then I'm like, hey, this actually worked, and here's the data. But a lot of times, the ideas I'm sharing, because they ask, like, what can I do? I'm like, hey, listen, I don't know if this is going to work, but if you're willing to try something, here's an idea I haven't got a chance to try myself. And most people are afraid to do that. And I make sure to put the caveat, like, I legitimately don't know if this is going to work. This, as Seth Godin says, this might not work. But everybody that I've ever suggested a this might not work idea to appreciated it. They tried it, and admittedly, 3 out of 4 times, like Zapier tells me, 77.2% of the time.
There you go.
Those ideas work. Mm-hmm. And occasionally they don't. Usually the times they don't, it's not like it hurts them. They just didn't do as well as they thought. So I think the thing is, when somebody opens that invitation, you don't necessarily have to stick to proven things or just stick to the playbook. Like, look at their individual audience and suggest things that you might not suggest to persons A, B, and C. But with person D, you say, maybe you need to host a blab. Maybe you need to do a Twitter chat. Maybe you need to do live chat on your website. I don't know. Things that you might not do with other people because they're experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
Love it, guys. So here's a question, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It's not one of those rhetorical questions either. Like, did you rub Mark's head for good luck before the launch? It's not one of those questions.
We all know the answer.
That is rhetorical.
Yeah. So this being your first JV launch,
yeah,
you are now on an awesome system known as Infusionsoft.
Yes.
But you were not at the time. So tell us about that experience, because I'm not going to share the lesson first. I'll share the lesson after. How did you do this launch? What system did you use, and kind of what was the process?
Yeah, and Mark, you can jump in at any point in time too if I forget anything. But we had a very duct taped together system is probably the easiest way to say it. Both with the funnels
together.
That we built.
It was Zapiered together.
Yeah. Zapier is the duct.
It's the modern version of Sanford and Son, right?
Yes.
I'm not even sure what that means entirely, but
All right, how do I stop this now? In broadcast now.
so we had, let's see, what were we using? We were using iDev affiliate for for our affiliate software, and that was synced up with MemberMouse, which was our membership software. That's like where we hosted all the gated content for the course and everything else like that. We don't use that anymore, even though I loved MemberMouse. But it doesn't work with
MacGyver? You know
Infusionsoft.
MacGyver?
I do.
Okay.
He works at Zapier. And
Okay,
so we
I
had
gotta get a
MacGyvered
sponsorship
all this stuff
for this-
together with
for this
MailChimp and a bunch of other systems. Long story short, what did most of the affiliate tracking was iDev affiliate, and that was great. That was actually really, really great for when we were working one-on-one. It got really, really complicated once we started bringing on, well, let's say like 7 affiliates to work with at once. That was a little bit more challenging because we discovered we had a couple of people that were like on both lists. And iDev, there's some settings in there that can make it easier, but for the most part, it's challenging. I had somebody in there that had already been a paying customer for me for, I don't know, half a year or something along those lines, and then they had clicked through an affiliate offer, and all of a sudden my affiliate got the commission. We had to correct little things like that. So it worked great up until a point. It was phenomenal, in fact, and the price was right too. But
it's what, $200 or less?
Yeah, I think it's like
I mean, you and I talked
$149,
about this
$200.
like 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I want to. The reason I asked that question is, this is not the how do you do a $2.85 million launch video. This is like how do you do your first, and sometimes you do have to like copper wire, duct tape, and bubble gum stuff together. You have to MacGyver it or Sanford and Son it. Gosh, I'm gonna have to explain that to you later. Okay, for those of you too young for Sanford and Son, no,
I just don't watch it. I was too busy watching like, I don't know, whatever
Knight
else was on
Rider.
Full House.
Did you
or
watch
something.
Knight Rider?
Yeah,
Knight Rider.
Okay.
Welcome to the late 80s.
Sanford and Son was a father and son who ran a junkyard, and they kind of like pieced stuff together essentially. So the point being that you worked with what you had, and you were still successful. Looking back, you go, well, I'm thankful I'm not doing that anymore because it was more work than I needed to put in. But my point was, you didn't have the money at that time really to go get the better system in Infusionsoft, and you do your first launch, you make some money, and oh look, now you have the money to you're able to justify that expense. So don't be. This is to the viewers. Do not be intimidated thinking you have to have the best system. Again, when you're doing that first or second JV launch with people who, go back to rule number 1, start with who you know. They don't care if you're on Infusionsoft or iDev or, whatever. Like, they're doing it because it's Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as, if you know them really well, they can trust you, that you're going to give them accurate reporting and make sure that their sales are credited, they're going to be fine. And side note, the whole thing where somebody signed up later is totally, it happens on Infusionsoft. I've seen it happen, where you had a paying customer and then their recurring payment got credited to it happens in any system. That is one of the reasons why as soon as you are financially able, it's like as soon as you can, before you ever even need it, switch to something like Infusionsoft. Switch to your top tier thing so that you have to deal with less of those like weird issues. So that's an aside. So that's awesome. Okay, we talked about what some top people did. We talked about what you guys did that went really well. One question for you, Mark, specifically. What is something that you did in this launch that you absolutely are not going to do in the next one, other than deal with iDev? It's like I have the sponsor of Zapier and then like the anti-sponsor of iDev. iDev, seriously, if you've got less than $500 to spend,
it's great. Yeah,
go
totally.
grab iDev, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an
better than
endorsement. I don't have an affiliate link, believe it or not.
Right.
It works, and it's.
I do. Talk to me.
Email Scott.
It is.
Email Scott at matt@mattmcwilliams.com and ask for his. I'll get an affiliate link. How about that?
No, it's you're exactly right, and yeah, I mean, I was one of the proponents, and And to me, it was one of those. It's like if your first car is like your dad gives you a brand new Chevy pickup, and then all of a sudden somebody hands you a 1973 Pinto. I don't even know if they made a Pinto in 1973, but I mean that's where my frustration came from. Was the fact that Matt, with you, all of our clients work with Infusionsoft. So for me, coming from Infusionsoft, I saw all the things that we could have been doing that we weren't doing or we couldn't do. But no, it's a great system.
You were the kid whose dad bought him a Lexus first in terms of affiliate systems.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, so we got to do that. Let's take. What was your first car?
Mine?
Yeah.
1980 Toyota pickup, SR5.
Scott?
Not surprised. 1982 Toyota Tercel with a hole on either side.
Nice.
And you guys are younger. Scott, you're younger than me, right? Almost 37.
Oh yeah, I am younger than you.
So how is it that you guys your first cars were old? Mine was a 1991. Now this is 1997. Mine was a 1991 Lincoln Continental. Now you think, leather seats, but this
nice. It was a boat.
Mine cost $100.
I got 30 miles to the gallon going down the side of a mountain. If there was any wind resistance, I had to fill up just to get across town. Okay, and this is so fun. Like this thing was literally a boat, but I mean it was sweet though. And it cost like $4,000. I think a friend of my dad sold it to him. It was like $4,500. And this thing had it told you what your current miles to the gallon was. It had the lumbar support. I mean, it was pretty sweet for a 91.
91, yeah.
But then the hydraulics went out on it. No joke. If I went over a speed bump, I hit my head on the roof. And it cost more than we had paid for the car to get them fixed.
That's funny. Mine was an 80 because it was my dad's pickup. Like my dad had bought it brand new.
So I'm very thankful. I had a not only a sweet and loving grandmother, but also a grandmother whose husband was very good with money. It's a nice way of saying my grandmother was loaded, and so she bought me a brand new car.
Nice.
And I remember that, going from the Hoopty Mobile that also had a garbage bag for the back right window because somebody threw a brick through it on campus. Going from the Hoopty Mobile where my head hit the thing to this cloth seat Mitsubishi Mirage, I was like, yes, I'm no headaches. All right,
how did we get to that point? No, and then I upgraded to an older one.
You went backwards. This is ridiculous.
1979 Camaro.
Well, see, that's not going backwards. That's just older.
I said it upgraded to an older one. No, so something that we did last time that I wouldn't do this time.
Hey, you remember the question?
I do remember.
That is impressive.
Quite amazing.
I was long gone.
But no, and where I was going with that last one was just the fact that, Matt, you and I have done things before where we just set up different landing pages for people. So, there's no excuse not to start doing this at some level. iDev's great if that's what you can use, but be prepared that there will be things that you will miss out on if you don't upgrade at some point.
Yeah.
All right, so what would we do different? I think, Scott and I have talked a little bit about this, and one of the things that we really looked at was the fact that there was confusion, I felt like, with affiliates as far as what to promote when. Because we had an audio course, then we had an 8-day video course, which was a lot of the same type of content. And so there was, to me, as the affiliate director trying to say, hey, mail for this or mail for this, it was hard to ask them to mail again at times because I couldn't distinguish why should you send to this if you mail to this. And so I think that's one of the things that we really talked about is really clarifying what your pre-launch content's going to be and what your strategy is going to be. And that's where we've talked a lot around, what's Scott's strength. Scott's strength is webinars. How do we play into that fact and not have, I guess, not necessarily repeat content because the content was different, but it was easy for people to look at it and say, okay, well, this is just an audio version of a video course. Why am I going to send to both of them? And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we've looked at that we want to do better with. The next one is just really making sure that if you're going to have a piece of pre-launch content, that there's a purpose for it and it fits into the pre-launch content. I think we get so caught up in this idea of 3 videos and then a webinar, which Jeff Walker is a guru and he's done a fantastic job of teaching how to do this. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take what he says and really look at it, but
you
don't do it just to do it.
What works for your audience.
Right. Yeah, and you don't do it just to do it. I think sometimes we get so caught up in, well, we have to have 3 videos or whatever. Well, if that doesn't work for your audience, if webinars is what works, maybe you should do 4 webinars instead of 3 pieces of content. I mean, the key is, and I was thinking about this, Matt, the other day with the Authority Summit. I mean, our goal, with any launch, and Scott's is no exception, our goal is not to get opt-ins, it's to get sales. Mm-hmm. So if you can get more sales by doing webinars, but maybe you don't have as many opt-ins, I mean, you weigh that out and you make the decision. So for me, I think it's just we need to make sure that our pre-launch sequence has a purpose. It's not just there because it's supposed to be there.
So you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask, which I think is absolutely rude because I didn't get to ask it.
Well, hold on, because I think there's one more learning in there.
Hold on.
We'll see if we can answer the next question too. That's also a procedure.
This is you can answer a question I'm not even going to ask.
Exactly. But to build off really quick what Mark said, I think one other piece that we learned, and Mark, you can probably articulate this better than I can, but we learned that leaving some of those things open-ended versus really confirming with people when they're going to mail, and even actually being more instructive. Like we went so far as to give timelines. You can mail for the What Fits You audio course from this time to this time, and we put like a 4-day period on there, and then
which means they don't mail at all in those 4 days.
Yeah. So here's what happened is people went through and was like, well, should I mail on that day or should I mail this day? And they'd kind of put off the decision till the last minute, and then maybe they'd email on the last day, or they were confused about it and didn't email at all. And when we're working in a space where this isn't something that people do every single day, and we're wanting to help them through and make it easier, that's not the easiest way to go. So the easier way to go would be say, hey, look, we've already figured it out. Here's the best day to email for this type of thing. And here's the best day to email for this next thing. And then you email on that day. And I felt like that was being too prescribed, but truly that was actually helpful to people after, in hindsight.
Yeah, that's a lesson I learned. I mean, when somebody says, hey, when's the best day to mail? That is not an invitation to use the word "or" at any point in your communication.
Yeah.
It's Monday or Tuesday, anytime next week. Like, don't know. Tuesday, noon, Eastern Standard Time.
They mean what they say.
They asked you for what's the best time, so tell them. And I mean, the truth is, like, if you legitimately don't know, then you still just pick a time. Tuesday morning. Like, that's the best time. Well, maybe it's Wednesday afternoon. Sometimes I don't really know.
Right.
I can tell you when the best time to mail for a Wednesday afternoon webinar is. It's Wednesday morning. It's not Tuesday evening. It's not Monday afternoon. It's Wednesday morning. But other than that, like, what's the best time to mail video 1? I don't know. Sometimes, like, here's the day. Mail on the second day. It's Tuesday. You mail it. And so don't use "or," don't use "any time." Just do that. And the second lesson is that you clearly outlined there's a big difference between somebody saying, sure, I'll mail, and I'm gonna mail on Tuesday the 7th at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Like, cool, because if I log in and check the stats at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday the 7th and you don't have any traffic, you said you were mailing, but I don't see anything. Oh, I am so sorry. I scheduled it for tomorrow by accident. Cool, go unschedule it and send it now. Or I forgot. Let me go do that now. And now you've created a sense of urgency in them, because they made a commitment. Mm-hmm. So, all right, awesome. As we wrap up here, any last thoughts? I mean, anything, any just like a lesson you want to share from this first, big JV launch experience that you guys had?
You mean other than the ones we've already shared? Those weren't good enough?
That's why I asked, are there any others? Any last?
Yeah. I think for me...
Jeez!
Oh, God.
The very biggest thing that I took away, which is ironic, and this is going to be a little bit repetitive, but it was just by far the biggest lesson, is go with what you're great at and kind of build your JV launch around what you already know works. So in our case, like, one of the things that we had done, and we talked about this fairly extensively, is, look, we'd already been testing for a long, long, long time. And that actually helped when I went to have those conversations with those few potential JV partners. Yep. Some people ended up saying no, but it wasn't that I was going and having a conversation saying, hey, would you give us a chance? It was that we'd already tested this thing out, and we already knew what was playing to our strengths a little bit for the most part. So
it's a very different conversation. Like, hey, I got this product. What's your EPC? I don't know. EPC, by the way, is earnings per click. So if you send 1,000 clicks and you earn $1,000, you made a $1 EPC, and it's a totally different conversation, especially as you get bigger. When people are like, well, what results should I expect? I have no idea. Like, no, you should expect approximately a 5.7% conversion rate. That's our average on cold traffic, and that'll equal an EPC of $3.72. Cool. How big is your list? 10,000 people. Well, then you should expect to send about 500. You can actually give them. You're going to make $3,750 on average.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm in, or I'm out. Either one. Either answer is perfectly acceptable, but it is a totally different conversation than when you're like, "Yep, never tested this before, no idea." Can I see a replay of your webinar? Nope, never done one. All right. Well then, that's why I say do a webinar for 2 people if you need to. Do a webinar to an empty room just to be doing a webinar, and you'll get better at doing those. So at least you have something to share with somebody if they ask. So any last thoughts from you, Mark?
I think, for me, one of the things that I've learned, and this is partially from the first launch, but partially in the lead up to our upcoming launch, is just, again, we've touched on this a little bit, but really understanding your industry. Because, Matt, you and I have done, I've done, how many launches with you now? 5, 6, 7, something like that. And I thought I knew how to recruit affiliates for our next one. And we found out very quickly that this industry does not work that way. The way that you and I recruit affiliates for all the other launches we've done was a complete and utter failure. And so, Scott and I have had a lot of conversations about why is it that way? How do we find these affiliates? Where do we find them? Where are they at? Not only where are they at as far as like Twitter or whatever, but where are they at in their businesses? What are they wanting? And I think that's one of the biggest things I realized is that you have to look at the industry you're in, and you have to look at who your potential clients are, but also who your potential affiliates are, and you have to know and understand what moves them to want to promote your product. And if you don't do that, you can't take what necessarily, you can't on blind faith take what works in another industry and just assume that it's going to work. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away, and the thing that we're implementing now is, okay, where do we find these affiliates? Where are they at? How do we connect with them? And we found that it's a lot higher touch than a lot of other launches that we've done. And that's probably partly because we don't have some relationships with them. Like Matt, you have a lot of the affiliates we work with. But either way, it's a lot higher touch, and we have to go about it a different way. You can't just send an email, give them a one page, and say, hey, here it is. So I think it's understanding that and not getting getting discouraged and just realizing, again, like Scott said in the beginning, that we have a goal for what's going to happen in a year, and realizing that, hey, because of this industry, we're going to have to train people a little bit more. We're going to have to take it a little bit slower. We're going to have to hold hands a little bit more, because that's just the way it is. And that's okay. And not judging what a launch for what did you call it, Scott? A lifestyle design course for people that don't know what lifestyle is.
Lifestyle design.
You can't take that course. You can't take that sort of course in that industry and hold it up against a course like Josh Turner's. It's totally different. The people are different. The customers are different. The affiliates are different. You're different. Your business models, everything's different. And so that's a good place to start, and that's a good framework to start from. But you have to be willing to say, okay, this doesn't work. What are we going to do now? And that was the biggest takeaway for me, is just realizing that there's principles that work, but that doesn't mean that the tactics necessarily will work.
And here's an interesting thing on that note, and I know we got to wrap up here, but I haven't looked at it this way before, but I really it's like having 2 sets of customers. It is having 2 sets of customers. And like, I feel bad. I feel terrible, like I'm not producing for my affiliates if they're not making money on it because I feel like I'm letting them down. But then on that note, I should really be taking the same strategy, when we're looking for affiliates. Like I look for our target market for our customers, and we spend a lot of time establishing what the target market looks like and doing the research and everything like that and really understanding the inside of out and outs like Mark's talking about. Why am I not having an affiliate target market where I've got the same, here's our avatar and like the same level of care in that and understanding?
So as we wrap up, Scott, I want to touch on that real quick, because then I want to spend just a moment before we end talking about your next launch. But the question that I had that I just thought of is like, who is your avatar? So somebody's watching this going, I wonder if I'm a good fit, for Scott. So the easy answer is go sign up and just ask him. Ask Mark and Scott, like, hey, I mean, is my audience a good fit? So who is it? Like, what do they write about? What are they doing that make them a good fit to promote this as a JV partner?
These are, if you have a list or audience or customers that have people that are frustrated in their jobs and want to do something differently and aren't entirely sure what they want to be doing, then you probably have a fit for our target market.
Statistically, you just described 81% of the population.
It is.
I'm just saying statistically.
Yeah.
And that does. I mean, that's not just the career section. I mean, that's self-improvement. That's
we worked with finance people in the finance space before because that is a lot more hand in hand. But definitely self-improvement, definitely personal development, definitely a lot of other tangible industries. I haven't worked with people in the like fitness space, but I suspect that there's overlap there too, because these are the people that are attracted to this are really interested in improving themselves and doing something differently than the rest of the world, even though they're currently doing the same sort of thing.
So hint to the people watching, survey your audience. And if you find that this might fit, then reach out to Scott, or below this video, you guys will see a link to sign up as a partner for them. You don't lose anything by signing up. It's not like you're going to hold a gun to your head and make you send 13 emails.
It's only 11 right now.
Yeah, here's what I would do. I would sign up. I would sign up for Scott's next launch, even if you're not in his industry. Mark and Scott would be glad for you to be on their JV list and for you to get their emails and watch the evolution of how they run a launch for the next year. I don't care if you're in an industry that has nothing to do with career stuff. It'd be cool to watch. I know I'm going to do that. So last question, guys. When is the next opportunity to promote, figure out what fits? When is that next launch?
Runs May, April
25th.
April 25th through May 9th.
Come on, Zapier.
Come on, Zapier.
So that is April 25th through May 9th. That's 2016. If you're watching this in the future, I want to know are you on a hoverboard or what?
I'm on
click the button, now. Sign up, and Mark and Scott will let you know when that next one is. So, guys, I just want to thank you so much. Your generosity, your openness, this has been awesome, and I encourage anybody watching to get started. Go out and do your first small launch and build and grow from there. I'm excited to watch you two build and grow this thing to something remarkable.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.